Every teacher has had this moment, and some unfortunately have it on a daily basis. You're trying to teach a class, and then all of a sudden, a student makes a disparaging comment or disrespectful remark, and you've got to decide exactly how you deal with it. And what you do in that moment can determine whether you are able to nip it in the bud or turn it into some kind of show. And what I'm going to teach you today is how to take really difficult situations where a student or students are trying to elicit a show for the class and show you exactly how to avoid that. Today, I've sourced 4 very useful real life scenarios based on my 25 years of experience as a classroom teacher and in leadership dealing with teachers who have struggled with behavior management and confidence issues. These 4 scenarios all have something in common. They involve disturbance of class, disrespect of teacher, and a really crunch moment. Do I leave it? Do I try and defend it? Or do I deal with it in another way? And what I'm here to show you is it's always important to deal with it in some way. I know there'll be teachers out there who will say, oh, just leave it, just ignore it, pretend it doesn't hurt. I mean, it's great to have the body language to show that whatever the students say or do doesn't affect you internally. But it's also very important never to let a moment of disrespect in the classroom slide, because when you allow yourself to be degraded, you allow your classroom to be degraded, and you allow certain elements of the classroom to have power and influence that could really affect you later down the line. So without further ado, let's get on to scenario number 1. Scenario 1 I call the public refusal. A student's on their phone during independent work. You ask them quietly to put it away, and they look at you dead in the eye and say, no, I'm texting my mum, and you can't touch my property. Now let's first discuss what most teachers do. And when I say this, I'm not trying to judge most teachers. This is a very difficult situation where a student has bluntly to your face told you they're not listening to your instruction. Most teachers engage in a kind of tug of war. They either grab for the phone, bad mistake, or they threaten the student, if you don't give me the phone, such and such a consequence is going to occur. The problem with both of these reactions is that you're creating a show. And what I'm going to try and teach you today is to try and avoid that show, because that show is very unhelpful to what you're trying to do in the classroom. Here's how I would deal with the problem. I hear you. Our rule is no phones in the classroom. Make the right choice now, or I'll have to address it later on. And I turn around and I do not look at the student. I give that student some time to process, to make the right choice without having my disapproving gaze on them. And this is a huge, huge deal that is not taught to young teachers. It's not just what you say that determines the outcome in such a scenario. It's also the body language and where your eyes are. And often it's a human reaction to stare at the person you're trying to get a message across to. And what I'm trying to tell you today is, in these situations, try not to give eye contact. It gives the student some space to make the right call without feeling like it's a war. And so I would turn around and allow that student to think to themselves, do I really want this going further? I've been told to put it away. I've been told if I don't, there'll be consequences. Is this really worth the struggle? Now, you might say to me, I've done something like this before What happens if they continue to use their phone in violation of what you've just said? And the answer to that is quite simple. I would find a good time to go back to that student and I would just say the following words: "You'll need to see me after class." And then again, I'd turn around and I wouldn't give eye contact and I'd let it go. And then at the end of the class, just before the bell rings, I would announce to the students that a certain student will need to stay back, the rest of you can go. That gives the message to the other students that I am dealing with the problem. Now let's look at scenario 2. The comedian. You're mid-lesson, a student mutters something sarcastic after every sentence you say. Quiet enough to deny it, loud enough that the class keep laughing. Now, what do most teachers do in this scenario? Most teachers ignore it. And they ignore it because A, they could maybe not quite hear it properly, or B, they just don't want to cause a show. And that's a good idea. It is an excellent idea not to cause a show. But it's not a good idea to let it slide, because guess what will happen? Before you know, there'll be a multitude of sarcastic comments, and your authority will be greatly diminished, and your classroom will suffer accordingly. So here's what I would do. I would pause. Now, most teachers, when they pause and stare at the problem, the student saying these sarcastic remarks. I would pause and stare at my classroom material, whether it be the board or the novel I'm reading or the material I'm looking at. Just pause for 3 seconds and then I'd continue. Then if it happens again, I would find an opportune time to approach that student and say the following: "You've made a number of comments. It's greatly disturbed the class. It's quite disrespectful. Say one more comment and I'll have no choice but to see you after class." Again, if that student continues to make comments, you do progress to seeing that child after class. It's very, very important that you have these confrontations with students on a one-on-one basis. If they're in the classroom, you go up to them and you have a private conversation with them. You don't play it out in front of the audience, because the audience are looking to take out their popcorn and enjoy the show, and you're not going to provide a show for them. At the same time, you're not going to let it slide, whether it affects you or whether it doesn't affect you. That's an immaterial. The important thing is that you don't degrade your authority. Let's look at scenario 3. The prosecutor. You tell off a student for being off task. They stand up. "You only call me out because you're biased. You let everyone else do whatever they want. This class is a joke." Again, most teachers will automatically try and defend themselves. Most teachers will say, "What are you talking about? I treat you exactly like everyone else. I don't play favorites here." Now, what's the problem with defending yourself? The problem is this: you're creating a show, and everyone in the class is up for it. It's going to cause quite a disturbance. And when you have a to and fro with, let's say, a 14-year-old child, you're basically diminishing your own authority. And your authority is a very important asset to have. You don't need me to tell you that. So here's what I would do instead. Simply say, "I hear what you're saying. After class, you and I will have a discussion about it. I'll try and get your perspective, but for now, please turn to page 42 and continue working." And I would definitely have that discussion with that student. And if that student can convince me that I haven't been exactly partial and I have been a little unfair, I'll take it on board and I'll promise to do better. But that won't be the first part of our conversation. The first part of the conversation after class with me dealing with this matter would be all about how that student did the wrong thing by protesting in front of the class disturbing the class, and disrespecting the teacher. And I would provide that student with other techniques, other strategies for being able to give me that feedback in private, in our own time. Certainly worth considering, but not in front of the whole class. Finally, we have scenario 4, the mock king. You ask a student to sit down and get to work. They stand, they bow theatrically. Yes, your majesty, whatever you command. The class laughs. Because that student ends up sitting down, most teachers just laugh it off themselves. Usually with an embarrassed laugh, like, I wish you never did this, but I'm going to try and show that it didn't really bother me, and try and move on. I get it. That's actually not the worst way of responding. The worst way of responding would include making a big show of it. And it's a good thing to try and let some things slide. But again, this was disrespect. Again, disrespect diminishes your sense of authority, and that needs to be called out. And I would say to that student, I appreciate that you listen to me and sit down, but next time, please avoid the commentary. It's disrespectful and it wastes time. And again, I'd walk away, no eye contact. Now, if that student does the same type of thing again, you would quietly go over to them and say, please see me after class. That's it. Please see me after class. No explanations needed. So there we have it. 4 scenarios, real life scenarios that I think happen to many teachers on many occasions. And they're not always dealt with that well. And you don't always have that mentor to pull you aside and give you some advice on how to deal with this. And also the science behind it. You see, the student that calls you out in front of the class is looking for attention, is looking for a show, because that show is very entertaining to the average student. They cannot wait to put down their pen and paper and watch a tug of war between a teacher and a student. It's a lot of fun for them. And unfortunately, as much as we want to engage our students, we don't want to engage them in this way. So my advice to you is to eliminate the show, but don't ignore the incident, because that incident has attempted to diminish your authority, and your authority is important. I'm Michael, and I'll see you next week.